So there is a YouTube channel many of you might be familiar with called The Young Turks. And they did a segment, how many days ago here? 4 days ago, called Venezuelan Gang Takes Over an Apartment Complex. Or did they? Now, this is a weird name to put on a segment. You're a news outlet. Like, obviously you're fishing for clicks. Nothing against that. Game respect game, okay? But let's find out. Let's watch the segment. Let's learn about the Venezuelan gang taking over an apartment complex. Let's learn about that. Crazy stuff over here.
You're watching footage from last August featuring members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua breaking into an apartment unit in Aurora, Colorado. Now, a shooting later broke out in the building's parking lot. And there's also some video footage that shows armed men confronting.
Can you guys hear it all right? The audio, or is it very loud? I tried to turn it down a bit, and it's still showing up very loud on my my monitor. No, not me. Not me. The segment. Is the segment too loud? Feels okay? Cool.
A driver in the parking lot of
25. Okay.
The apartment complex. Let's put that up. So if you look closely at the kind of upper right-hand side, you see a car parked and you see individuals approaching that vehicle armed with guns. Luckily, in this case, the footage doesn't show anyone getting hurt or getting shot. But apparently, this particular apartment complex, according to some of the residents and former residents, has been riddled with all sorts of gang violence over the last year. But this incident has sparked a big debate and I believe some gaslighting about whether or not there is a problem with Venezuelan migrant gangs basically taking over apartment buildings or.
Oh, by the way, in case you don't know, Aurora, Colorado has almost 400,000 people in it. It's not like the smallest city. It's not the biggest city either, but it's not like tiny. Okay, it is. So this isn't like a place in the middle of nowhere that gangs allegedly took over a building. Pretty weird that they were able to do that. You know, just on face value, I would say that this merits some degree of skepticism. Let's find out more.
Causing violent crimes at these apartment buildings, and the local government can't seem to keep its facts straight or its story straight. So look, at first, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado, admitted that there actually is a problem with Venezuelan gangs.
The mayor of Colorado, who is a Republican, if I recall correctly.
Let's watch.
These gangs apparently are attracted to where there's a concentration of Venezuelan migrants, and so they've in fact have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation, and then
no, the mayor of Aurora.
Collected the rents. Arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
After that, it appeared that the state and local leaders kind of went into panic mode because they started to claim that there's no problem at all. What do you mean? This is a figment of your imagination. In fact, the governor, Jared Polis, claims that the allegations are a figment of your imagination. And
wait, did she actually say the mayor of Colorado? No, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado. Come on, guys. Don't make up silliness.
State and local leaders kind of went into panic mode because they started to claim.
Wait, did the...
But this incident has sparked a big debate and I believe some gaslighting about whether or not there is a problem with Venezuelan migrant gangs basically taking over apartment buildings or causing violent crimes at these apartment buildings. And the local government can't seem to keep its facts straight or its story straight. So look, at first, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado, admitted that there actually is a problem with Venezuelan
Yeah, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado.
gangs. Let's watch.
Okay.
The allegation, this is a figment of your imagination. In fact, the governor, Jared Polis, claims that the allegations are a figment of your imagination. And Aurora's interim police chief said that the gangs had not taken over one of the complexes. Now, you, depending on what you're hearing different things. And whether or not this is a widespread problem in Aurora, Colorado, remains to be seen.
Are you kidding me? Who knows? Gangs could control every apartment building in Colorado. Every single one. Are you kidding? Like, I feel like maybe you could listen when like the government is telling you, or you know, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe someone could go out to the apartment complex. I'm just spitballing here. It seems like maybe someone should go and see if that's happening or not. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not like, an expert on it, but generally speaking, it seems like, hey, we should probably check that out, huh? Well, let's see. You know what? Let's take a look. Let's find a local news person in Colorado. Let's see. I think I remember one. A guy named Kyle Clark in Colorado? Here, let's see. I bet that there is a video on this local news channel about this problem. Let's take a look. Let's scroll together here. Let's see. And from 6 days ago, 2 days before the segment that TYT put out. False information. Tenants respond to claims. Let's see what he has to say.
There are Colorado.
Now, I know we've watched this before on the channel, but you know what? It fits into this segment so well.
At the center of a national media frenzy right now, and they're worried it's putting them in danger. Conservative media and politicians say their apartment building's been taken over by a Venezuelan gang. Aurora police say that's not true. And the people living there gathered today to say their biggest challenge is their landlord. That area of Northwest Aurora has long struggled with crime and poverty. Today, our Evan Krugel went to the building where neighbors say the political fury has added a new problem for folks who have plenty of them already.
Inside the hallways at 1268 Dallas Street.
Whoa, inside the hall. No one said at the beginning of this segment it was going inside the hallways. That's active gang territory, okay? Who knows? The gangs might have taken over every apartment building in the state. No one has found out yet. You could be going into an active war zone. Hope they're wearing body armor, okay? There could be anything going on in there. Guns could be blazing, and no one would respond, because that is a no-go zone, okay? The law means nothing in those halls.
Music bounces off the walls.
Like the bullets. The music is... It's much like the bullets are bouncing off the walls, the music is also bouncing off the walls because of all of the gang warfare, right?
Una salsa.
It's why Carlos Ordoscoidi chose to live here.
Tengo tres. Dos niños y una niña.
When he left his 3 kids in Venezuela to try and provide for them in America.
Mucha gente buena, aquí vivimos padres trabajadores. Aquí
There were a lot of good people here. We are parents, we are hard workers, and we come here to work.
Vamos a trabajar, entonces no es justo que
And it's not fair that our rights are being put at risk because of a minority.
que nuestros derechos se vean vulnerados por una minoría.
Carlos's home is now in the spotlight after this video surfaced last week showing people carrying guns inside. Conservative media and politicians claimed Venezuelan gangs had taken over the complex.
We've got, Venezuelan gang members who have gone into an apartment complex, and now they're intimidating the tenants there to pay them the rent and probably extort other things from them.
The city's interim police chief says gangs are not taking rent.
El alcalde está fuera de órbita.
Carlos says he doesn't know the people in the video and says reports the buildings are overrun with gangs are greatly exaggerated.
Sí, lo que pasó en ese video.
With what happened in that video, it was here, we can't deny that.
No hay que negarlo. No se sabe en realidad.
But in reality, no one
motivo
knows what the
por qué esas
motives were
personas
for those
llegaron ahí.
people being here.
But
I haven't seen anyone invading anywhere. I haven't seen anyone being charged rent, and in reality, I haven't seen
He
that.
says all the attention has put his community in danger, with calls on social media for people to come here and confront the so-called gang members.
Venezuelan gangs, we're here to chase you off. This is our communities.
Ahorita sí siento un poco de
Right now,
temor
I'm scared
por lo que
because
se
what
está
has
viendo,
been
por
created and all the
por lo que se está
xenophobia,
creando, la
hate that has
xenofobia hacia
increased
nosotros,
towards us.
y me da muchísimo
I'm
miedo
really scared to be
salir a
outside
la
past
calle,
7 or 8 p.m. because you never know who
ya
can
después
drive by
de
or
las
come
7,
around to
8
try
de la
and harm
noche,
us.
porque uno no sabe qué carro, qué loco pase por ahí y nos quiera hacer daño. O sea, se trata de nuestra reputación.
This is affecting our
Y yo
reputation. I feel bad
me
because
siento
they're
mal
generalizing all of us, and it
porque
shouldn't be that
nos
way.
generalizan a todos y no debería ser así.
Now, Mayor Kaufman did visit the apartment complex.
Whoa, the mayor visited? The mayor who said that it was taken over by the Venezuelan gangs? Why, how could he go there? After all, it must have been an active war zone. Unless you know the largest progressive media network in the country and didn't bother to look up local news reports to see if there was an actual takeover of an apartment building that took place a couple days. You know, it'd be one thing if there was like none of that, but this report predates the TYT segment. So, oh shit, Charlie, you cracked the case. You cracked the case. The mayor is in on it. The mayor, he coordinated with the gangs. Clearly, he must have moved them from one apartment building to another one that they were also occupying. After all, it could have spread throughout the entire state. No one would know. There's just no way for us to verify if Venezuelan gangs have or have not taken over every apartment complex in Colorado. There's just no way to know, really. Weird. Let's watch this reporting through.
Yesterday, Carlos says he tried to talk to the mayor, but he wouldn't respond.
Oh, so the mayor went to the building for a photo op and then ignored the residents of the building after he fearmongered about how it had been taken over by a Venezuelan gang, leading to media coverage that caused conservatives to go insane and terrorize residents of the building.
Aurora spokesperson tells us the mayor did speak with people both in English and Spanish. Kyle, it's worth mentioning the people who live there say these apartments are extremely run down and in really bad shape. They believe the landlord is simply using this gang theory as an excuse to not pick up the property.
Oh. You mean TYT would do that? They would just report, I don't know, like corporate talking points without actually, I don't know, any kind of skepticism whatsoever. That's crazy. Why? What have I heard of them doing that before, except, oh wait, very recently, when it came to all of the Walgreens and Target closures in San Francisco. People were saying, oh, well, obviously it's because of all of this, you know, organized shoplifting that's going on. These crime rings, you see, they're simply running all of these poor, massive chain businesses out of business because they're losing too much of their product. Because that's what, you know, the association that represents all of those businesses said in a press release. And instead of doubting that narrative at all, TYT ran with it. And then it turned out, when you actually listen to what these businesses say in their stockholder meetings to, you know, their stockholders that they are legally obligated to be honest with, it turned out that actually they had just poorly planned which locations to open stores at because they had projected bigger profits in certain locations than what they were actually receiving. So that was why, and it wasn't because of shoplifting and like a increase in shrinkage, which also made sense because shrinkage rates were going down that particular time. Weird. Anyway. Oh, we have a couple seconds left.
Which is what Mayor Kaufman was saying at one time as well. His messaging sometimes changes by the hour. He'll come.
Oh. The mayor also said that the landlord was lying about the gangs. That's so crazy. Man, if only someone had done their due diligence on this story.
Come on this program, say that the issues are isolated, a lot of this is hysteria. He'll then go on Fox News and he'll say something different. Everybody agrees, right? The gang is present. There's been violence in that neighborhood long before this latest gang was there, and these buildings are in really bad shape.
Absolutely hard to disagree with any of that after seeing it firsthand today. And that's what's really troubling for a lot of these folks is they simply don't know who to listen to. When you're hearing one thing one day, one thing the next, it's hard to know, is that happening in my unit and I'm just not seeing it, or is it not happening at all?
We'll stay on it. Evan Krugel, thank you so much.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe the Venezuelan gangs are all in secret. You know, maybe they're secret gangs. Is that Kyle Clark? Why, yes, it is. My goodness. Anyway, the gangs could be anywhere. Let's learn more.
Let's be clear about that. But the issue of this Venezuelan gang carrying out violent acts and crimes in the area, there seems to be a lot of evidence of that, while the Democratic lawmakers and leaders in the state and local level want to pretend like it's not happening at all.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back, come back. Because before the video...
No, that's okay.
To the landlord of that apartment complex. Let's go to the evidence. There's a law firm representing the lender to the landlord of that apartment complex, okay? Remember, this is the lender. The lender wants to know, hey, I've loaned a lot of money out. I wanna know what's going on with this apartment complex. So the lender hires the Perkins Coie law firm, and they start to investigate claims of gang violence because the lender had caught word that there was an issue of gang violence at this apartment complex.
Gee whiz, I wonder how the lender caught word of that. Could it have been from the guy who owed them money?
The law firm says that it interviewed witnesses and reviewed video from the Whispering Pines, that's the name of the apartment complex, for its investigation. They then shared their report with Aurora, Colorado's top administrators on August 9th. Now, the video that we showed you earlier was taken later in August. So even before that incident occurred, there were already concerns about gang violence. There was already a law firm investigating it on behalf of the lender. And they submit their report on August 9th. And they also sent it to a local CBS News affiliate. And the report was further confirmed by the Aurora Police Department, which is now denying that there's a problem of Venezuelan gang violence at this apartment complex.
Now, I do have to pause because I'm a little confused. when she says the lender of the company. Like the lender to the landlord, I guess. Now, if she's talking about like some kind of banking entity or something like that, I'm unsure. I don't know exactly what she's operating off of here. But let's take a look at, a conservative outlet here.
Consider this a pre-apology to Jack and the mods. My anxiety is real bad, so I might be a little more knifey than usual.
Owner forced to sell Colorado apartment complex where Venezuelan gangs have been running rampant, despite Aurora cops claiming there's no problem there. Weird. So, if we scroll down here, we learned the landlord's name is Zev Baumgarten. And it looks to be that the building is actually owned by Okay, which is it? Here. Ah, yes. It's owned by a management company. Now, the management company is different than the landlord. The landlord doesn't own, doesn't operate the buildings. The landlord's part of a larger management company. Often landlords do this, right? So the management company, because they are trying to avoid any kind of legal culpability for running a slum, blames the property's condition on gangs. And their claim is that, oh, well, it's such a shithole because it's not our fault. We're the ones who are supposed to. We're supposed to take care of it, but we just can't. Our hands are tied because of the gangs. And then they hired a law firm to back up their claim that gangs were running their buildings. So, what I'm trying to say here is that they are hiring this law firm and running with this story to cover their own asses. Because if their landlord, the landlord that they are operating with, is running in this way, that the buck kind of stops with them. Also, we have no idea who anyone in that video is. And the people who live in the building are like, yeah, we don't know who those people are. And not only that, they showed up with an awful lot of guns, and we can see which apartments they visited. And police clearly investigated this and found absolutely nothing. So, that's so interesting. That's so very... Tell us more. Tell us more.
So first, here's what the report found. The evidence we have reviewed indicates that gang members are engaging in flagrant trespass violations, assaults and battery, human trafficking and sexual abuse of minors, unlawful firearms possession, extortion, and other criminal activities, often targeting vulnerable Venezuelan and other immigrant populations. So the person who authored the report on behalf of the law firm, T. Marcus Funk, wrote, and he is a former US attorney. So look, for the lefties who are watching this, who are concerned, oh my God, please don't report the truth because it's gonna paint migrants in a negative light.
No, you're just not reporting the truth. That's the issue. No one's saying, oh man, it's definitely true, but we can't say it because it will make migrants look bad. Do you have any idea how insane saying something like that is and claiming other people think like that is?
The migrants are the ones who are victimized by this. So if you care about migrants, if you care about immigrants, you should not want them to live under these conditions.
Well, the one imposing the conditions was the landlord of the building they lived in. When directly interviewed by reporters, residents for the building talked about the landlord, not any kind of gang that had taken over their building.
Let me go to more of the report where they write that the gang activity at Whispering Pines escalated in 2024, according to the document obtained by CBS News Colorado. In April of 2024, a housekeeper...
The debate should be starting at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It is currently 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Called the property manager, informing him that two individuals at the property went into an apartment, came out with large firearms, and were coming to kill him. The property manager. The individuals were apparently past due on rent. The property manager said, quote, that the two individuals were arrested as they were coming to kill him, end quote. The report says the men, who were armed with large firearms, were gang members. Now, the property manager went on to say that the gang members allegedly stabbed a Whispering Pines resident for refusing to pay rent to the gang. Since then, the property has recorded footage.
Again, I want to really stress this. This is all according to the law firm that was hired to demonstrate that the property management company wasn't legally responsible for the squalor the tenants of the buildings were living in. Like, that's what happened here. None of this is really based on police reports. Now, what's interesting is if you actually go and look at different stories from the area, you will find
progress
that local news actually does report on some aspects of what's going on when it comes to gang activity across the state. For more, let's go over to our man on the ground, Kyle Clark.
It appears law enforcement is making progress against the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua in the Denver metro area. Now, lost in the frenzy fueled by conservative media and politicians, first here locally and then nationally, that the gang's taken over buildings and swaths of Aurora. Lost in that was the acknowledgement by police that the gang is here in some number, making some isolated impact, their words, and they're working to make arrests. Kelly Rinke updates us on their progress.
Huh. You mean all of this misreporting on non-existent gang activity is overshadowing actual reporting on actual gang activity? That's crazy. Huh, it's almost like we should, I don't know, pay more attention to what local news reporters are doing instead of just running with a made-up story about how all the apartment complexes in Colorado are run by Venezuelan gangs.
There's no question there are members of a Venezuelan gang in Aurora. Some of them lived at an apartment complex at Colfax and Nome Street. A city spokesperson said last week their presence is small and police have made arrests. One of those was Leonardo Jose Pacheco Chirino. Officers arrested the 22-year-old in March for first-degree assault. Court documents say a witness called 911 saying someone beat a man with a bottle and he was bleeding to death. The witness said the man was arguing with a group of men who claimed, quote, they run this place.
They're here. We know they're here.
Conservative City Councilwoman Danielle Durinsky has made claims before that the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua is taking over buildings in the city.
The three of us believe that there is a gang problem, a huge gang problem, that apartment complexes and areas of our city are being taken over.
The city of Aurora says they didn't shut down the building for gangs, but instead for bad living conditions that date back years.
Weird. It's so crazy what you can learn by just, you don't even have to dig that far. You can just watch the local news here.
Before that happened in August, 4 people were arrested for a shooting in July that injured 3 people at the same complex. Officers arrested Pacheco Chirino again and his brother. An affidavit says they're likely members of the gang Tren de Aragua. His brother is facing charges of attempted murder and criminal attempt. The city shut down the building, and there's now focus on a different apartment complex in Aurora, owned by the same company. After this...
Huh. You mean the same company owned multiple buildings that were all so ungodly squalid that the city stepped in and shut them down? That's crazy, dog.
This video surfaced last week showing people carrying guns inside. Tenants at apartments near Dallas and Helena Streets say their biggest problem isn't gangs, It's the landlord.
Pero yo no he visto que estén invadiendo, yo no he visto que estén cobrando.
Oh, look, it's the same. You know what? Wow, look at this. It's like they went and talked to that guy. Crazy.
Renta, en realidad yo no lo he visto.
Aurora's mayor, Mike Kaufman, who shared multiple opinions on this, posted on Facebook Wednesday he's not sure where the truth is in all of this. He said owners told him they were forced out via threats from the gang, but none of the tenants he spoke to Wednesday expressed concern for their safety.
Weird. The owner of the building said that he was forced out by a dangerous, evil gang that had taken over his entire building, but none of the tenants could would say that there was any gang activity whatsoever. Gee whiz, I wonder where the truth is in all of this. Maybe there's just a little bit of gang in there, you know, like, we'll split the truth in two. Clearly there's some gang there, and clearly there's some no gang there, so only half the gang is there. This is insane. This is crazy. The building owner is clearly lying because of the conditions of the units, because of the conditions of the building, because it's a fucking slum. That's why. It's so painfully obvious. Just question the corporate narrative, Anna. Like, I don't know, question it for like 5 seconds.
So the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office says they've arrested some TDA members for drug charges, but we can't independently confirm that because they won't tell us their names.
Damn, it's so crazy that in this story about arrests of this gang being made, none of the arrests were for taking over Colorado apartment complexes. You know, Anna told us that, you know, all of the apartment complexes in Colorado, who knows how many they have taken over? Who knows? Could be all of them. So, like, I don't know, maybe that you know, if nothing else, maybe the fact that the police haven't been able to arrest any Venezuelan gang members for taking over apartment complexes, maybe that should be like a sign that maybe this story isn't entirely true, as put forward by the law firm hired by the company that has every incentive in the world to not be found liable for the squalid conditions its buildings were in. I'm just throwing that out there, guys. Just really tossing that one out there for your consideration.
Of gang members knocking on doors without authorization or without any justification, attempting to collect rent from the tenants of Whispering Pines. And then in June, the report says suspected gang members approached the property manager and offered to help the manager if he agreed to pay the gang 50% of everything the property management company collected in rent. Now, the investigators who wrote the report said gang members said that they were taking over vacant units at this apartment complex and would start collecting rent from the tenants. And they allegedly said, quote, "This is our business plan." One gang member told the housekeeper, if he, meaning the property manager, doesn't like it, we will fill him with bullets.
Yeah, this sounds totally legit. Based on no evidence whatsoever. This is a law firm collecting information for its client. Information.
The report says video footage shows Tren de Agua gang members violently breaking into vacant apartments, kicking doors open, and also moving Venezuelan immigrants into the empty apartment units. And I'm about to get to
Patrick Lucas, thank you for gifting a membership over on YouTube. I appreciate it. Thank you for being the first person to support stream today.
Confirmation of all of this by the Aurora Police Department in just a minute. But before I do, Cenk, I want to give you a chance to weigh in.
Yeah. So, guys, I don't know what the dispute's about. So the left wing is saying what? That they didn't take over the apartment buildings. They're there. They're obviously there. There's no question that they're there. Did they take over some apartments?
Based on what, Cenk? the only evidence that there have only been two pieces of evidence put forward so far. One is a report put together by a law firm that is heavily incentivized to find reasons that they are not culpable for the squalor that they force their tenants to live in. And the other is a video purported to be from a former resident of the building, though that original video of the people with the guns had, like, we don't know where that came from, and we don't know anything about any individual in that video. So I just really have to stress here, they're not operating on a lot of input, and it's not like you couldn't just Google this story and find the interview that we watched earlier. Patrick Lucas, thank you for becoming a member again over on YouTube. Thank you for supporting the stream.
Apartments, there's no question that they took over some apartments. So they're saying what?
There's no question about whether they took over the apartments. Even the mayor of the town is like, well, no, the people in the building told me no, that never happened. So who am I to believe? The one landlord who's really culpable for all of the conditions I saw at that apartment, or all of the tenants that I talked to who said it didn't happen? Who could say what happened, really? No way.
The lawyers are lying about the entire building being taken over. Remember, it's not the property owner. Now, a lot of people say, oh, the property owner is a bad guy. That doesn't prove anything. The property owners could be bad guys that don't take care of the rodents and the bed bugs, etc. And a Venezuelan gang might have taken over the apartments. Those two facts are not at all logically connected.
They are connected when the property management company hired a law firm to corroborate the reasons they haven't been keeping up the building. Like that's how it's related. It's related because the law firm they brought in is specifically there to confirm that that's what's happening. It's not even ridiculously confusing. It's very simple, okay? There's a guy who owns the buildings, and he works with a property management company, okay? The guy who owns the buildings didn't do a good job taking care of them. And the property management company also didn't do a good job taking care of them, to the extent that the buildings had to be shut down and over 300 residents had to be evicted because of how bad the actual living conditions were in the buildings. Now, in order to try and not have their business sued into oblivion, the property management company and probably the landlord of this building started this story of, oh, well, it's Venezuelan gangs. Yeah, they're the reason the buildings are shit, not our fault. And they ran with that. They hired a law firm to confirm that, to establish that as the narrative. And then, unfortunately for them, the story got a little bit bigger than they intended, and now it got picked up as national news. And wow, because it's national news, people are actually looking into it, except, the people from the largest progressive news network in the country, I guess. And turns out, oops, there is no gang takeover of these apartment buildings.
BWA.
Crazy. Crazy what happens when you actually listen to what the residents of the building have to say. And to be clear, what they have to say is, there is no gang taking over their building. There aren't any gang members extorting them for rent. And the scariest things that they have to deal with on a daily basis are all of these white supremacist militia assholes who are showing up there because of right-wing coverage of this issue. Why do you keep asking if we're at the debate yet? I told you the debate's going to be in like 40 minutes. You asked me 15 minutes ago when the debate is. Just look at a clock. Set a timer.
So I don't see how that disproves that there's a gang there. So there's more evidence coming that Anna's got for you guys. I was very persuaded by local.
Yeah, if only there were any kind of like local news coverage where they interviewed people at the building 2 days prior to this segment going up. Anyway.
Local news. Unfortunately, we can't show the video from local news because of copyright issues. But number one, the legal report that Anna is referring to was super clear. And I don't know why people are surprised that gangs do extortion. Of course.
You can't show the local news coverage. I'm pretty sure like video from different news reporting could be all right. Anyway, let's look at what Anna cited as the local news coverage going on here. It's not just that people like this clown are ignorant. They can't even be bothered to do a simple Google search, and they're lazy as hell too. The arrogance is incredible. Lizzie Nepon, thank you very much for the 30 months. Thank you for subscribing over on Twitch. But again, wild that she's taking the stance of like, wow, you should have just Googled it. When like, we did. Local news is telling you that you're wrong. But let's watch this segment, okay?
Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell is live in Van Nuys with more on the arrests in what investigators call crime tourism. Josh.
That's interesting. Here, one second. One second. This is so strange.
Josh.
In Philip and Colleen, this is the business behind me. It is now shut down. It appears to be a car rental company, but they were not interested in renting cars to you or I, but criminals from South America. 6 defendants under arrest in Los Angeles for coordinating a nationwide crime tourism operation.
Because other than making the threats, he hasn't done anything wrong yet.
The threat is a crime. It's a terroristic threat.
Okay, but
interesting. But I guess this is not related to the apartment complexes. This is just posting a random story about how I guess immigrants are rapists and murderers and thieves.
Involving an LA rental car business with locations in Van Nuys and in Panorama City. But the dealerships only rented cars to criminals flying in from South America, mainly Chile, coming here to commit home and business burglaries, thefts, and other crimes.
Crime tourists would go to this car rental business. There they'd be provided with a vehicle. They would also be directed, since many of them were not familiar with the country, to where to go to commit acts of crime and theft.
Eyewitness.
Crazy. Wild that not even the full segment got posted. Good job. Definitely beating the accusations of gas leaks.
Of course they do, right? And then I was very persuaded by a local resident, a Latina working class woman that we're going to show you in a minute, who told her story of it. So it's definitely real. The only question is it the whole?
But you know, the mayor who claimed that it was happening initially, who then talked to residents of the building and they all said it wasn't happening. Who are we to believe? One person or like the entire army of people who live in there? The gang army? Oh man, what if they're interviewing all gang members? I didn't even think of that.
Whole building? Is it some of the building? And is it no big deal if it's just some of the building? So we'll get into those.
Yeah, you know how it's no big deal if a gang takes over an entire apartment complex. You know how people are notoriously okay with gangs having dictatorial control over an entire apartment building. This is actually insane, right? What if the whole building is in on it? You know, I think I remember seeing a movie about this once. It was called Dread. It was about a cop who gets stuck inside a gigantic apartment complex by a gang. Yep, it's just like Dread. Dread is real now. Quality reporting, Young Turks.
Questions in a little bit, but it's no question that it's a giant problem. Oh, and the other question we'll get into in a minute is...
No question it's a giant problem. Just, the police are lying about it. The police and the mayor and all of the tenants of the buildings, they're all in the gang.
Who's responsible? Because that mayor, I think, is the most responsible. And he's been...
Oh, is he now? That's so crazy. The mayor is the most responsible one. Man, be a shame if the mayor started talking about how it wasn't actually gang activity, huh?
Making it seem like, oh no, Biden's the most responsible. We can get into that conversation. But brother, Biden doesn't run your city. You do. Send in the goddamn cops if you think there's gangs taking over buildings.
Yeah, I don't think you have to have such a low opinion of like the online left if your main takeaway is the online left is actually in like pro gangs taking over buildings. Like, the left is not out here being like, yes, we need more apartment buildings taken over by gangs. That's not anyone's ideology, actually.
Yeah, and it does appear, based on what one of the former residents is going to say, and you're going to hear from her, that the police didn't really want to deal with it. So we'll get to that in a moment. But in response to that law firm's report about the gang violence, basically the Aurora Police Department provided confirmation. In fact, they had their own reporting on this, and their own reporting fell in line with what this law firm was saying. So
did it now? Are you sure about that?
Instance, an officer reported responding to a call from a house cleaner at Whispering Pines. He said she told the police she was threatened that she needed to give up the keys to the vacant apartments at the Whispering Pine apartments so that a group of Venezuelans could move people into the Whispering Pine apartments. The officer reported, quote, suspects left, but not before warning her to comply or else they would kill her or her family. The Aurora officer wrote to fellow officers, I would highly recommend you guys take 2 to 3 friends with you when responding to any calls there. So clearly, the Aurora Police Department was spooked about responding to any calls at this apartment complex. When CBS asked the Aurora Police Department about this, especially considering how they have recently denied gang violence as a problem, here's what they said, quote, the information and claims in the letter underscore why Aurora Police Department and other law enforcement agencies formed a special task force to investigate violent crime impacting migrants and other communities in the Denver metro area.
Now, what's interesting about this is that none of this is about how gangs are taking over apartment complexes. Because notice how there's been a shift here. No one is saying that there's no gang activity in Aurora, Colorado. Literally no one. There's no left-leaning people saying there are no gangs. There's no right-leaning people saying there are no gangs. There are no middle-of-the-road people, no moderates, no centrists saying that there are no gangs in Aurora, Colorado. No one's saying that. What they're saying is, gangs are not taking over these apartment complexes that you have centered your entire story on. And in fact, the premise of your story is actually predicated on a lie told by building owners to avoid legal culpability. It's so interesting. Here is another local news report from Colorado, Fox 31. Let's see here. Aurora threatens to close apartments unless property management steps in. Interesting. Aurora has threatened to shut down 2 troubled apartment complexes unless their owners take responsibility for deteriorating conditions and install an in-person presence on the properties. The complexes at issue are The Edge at Lowry and Whispering Pines. CBZ Management operates both complexes, which have suffered a severe lack of maintenance, along with concerns about the presence of Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. My bad. Let's see. On Thursday, Aurora City Manager Jason Batchelor offered 2 police officers at each property for 2 weeks and possibly longer, but only if the owner installs an on-site property manager at each location. That's according to Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman, who said he toured the properties on Sunday. If the owner does not assume responsibility for these properties and start providing routine services like trash removal, the city will be forced to close both apartment complexes as a last resort. Because the property management wasn't doing any part of what it takes to maintain the properties. Meaning that trash was just accumulating in the halls and in the apartments. Okay? I was about to say arugula. You are correct, Monica G. Huh. Weird how most of this story isn't about how the gangs are taking over the apartment complexes. That's so wild. Windows were boarded up and trash bins were full, similar to conditions at the Edge at Lowry. Along with issues with trash and maintenance, Arenas obtained videos that show a group entering the building at the Edge with several weapons and then entering a unit. It happened just before a shootout that neighbors said was like warfare, which is, I want to clarify, horrible, but it's worth noting that that's one incident. One bad thing can happen at a place, and that not be an indication that the entire building is run and taken over and being extorted by gang members. You know, there's a lot of difference between those two things. Still, some residents told Fox 31's Gabby Easterwood that gangs were not the problem. Absentee property management was. After meeting with the tenants from both complexes last week, Kaufman said he agreed with interim police chief Heather Morris, quote, that a Venezuelan gang is not in control of either of these 2 apartment complexes. Huh. Crazy. I'm gonna add this part. He believes that there were gang-related problems that caused the property managers to flee. Now, I want to say, that's because the mayor of this town is a conservative. And frankly, he buys the conservative bullshit that is being pumped out by the property management company. I, personally, believe the people who live in the building who are far more vulnerable than the landlord of the building who is lying to cover his ass. But, you know, that's just me. Oh, and as a final little cherry on top. Oh, Kaufman went into the complexes unaccompanied on Sunday without incident and visited every floor throughout all 9 buildings. Huh. What a war zone. I thought they were all occupied by the gangs. Crazy. CBZ management also operated the Fitzsimmons apartments on Nome Street, which the city recently shut down, citing code violations, forcing hundreds to find new homes in about a week. Man, who should we believe? The company that has a track record of fucking over literally hundreds of people to make more money by denying maintenance? Or, you know, the people who live there? I can't tell you. It's potato, am I right?
So which one is it? Is there a problem with Venezuelan gang violence in the area, or isn't there? Because on one...
Well, again, you started the segment by saying that the gangs were taking over apartments, which is a different thing than there being gang problems. Every city on Earth has gang problems, okay? Every single city has that problem. That isn't unique to Aurora, Colorado. What would be unique is if the criminal gangs started taking over apartment complexes.
On one hand, they say this isn't a thing, figment of your imagination. On the other hand, they're like, no, totally. We created like a special task force to deal with it. And by the way, just going back to something that Cenk referenced really quickly. So there are still tenants living in this apartment complex. Many of them
Rob C.
are low income. Many of them are migrants. And so recently they held a
Nope, I'm just a salty socialist. I got a sharp tongue.
To protest against the landlord, who does seem like a giant piece of you know what. They complain about bed bugs, they complain about rodents, they complain about the terrible conditions that they're living under. And some of them are saying, no, the gang violence isn't the problem. The real problem is the landlord. But both things can be true, guys. The landlord being neglectful and not taking care of the building could actually attract more crime.
True. But the reason that these two things are largely seen as connected is because the property owner and the property management company are trying to cover their asses. That's why they brought in a law firm. Like the property if there were actual crime being done at this place, do you think the property management would hire a law firm? No, they would just call the police. Are you kidding me? There's no reason to hire hiring a law firm is a lot of money. There's no reason to do that when you can just call the police. And you know who the police tend to listen to in their local areas? Property management companies that manage several buildings in the city. Police tend to show up for that.
That usually happens when gangs or criminals see a building kind of falling apart. They see it as an opportunity to come in and take over. And so I don't see that as, oh, well, it's one or the other. It could totally be both. And how do you account for all of these reports and all of this evidence that's pouring in regard to the issues that they're having, not just in this apartment complex, Cenk, but in the area in general? And look, there have also been some pretty interesting arrests ever since this story went viral. Let's go to this next graphic, where the Denver Post reports that police have identified 10 people linked to the Tren de Aragua gang who are operating in Aurora, and 6 of those people have been arrested and are in custody. Aurora police spokesperson Joe Moylan told the Denver Post.
That's great. But it doesn't support your theory that the gangs have taken over the apartment complexes, does it? Because again, you've shifted the conversation from gangs have taken over the apartment complexes to there's gang activity. And like, yeah, that's every city. Every city of relatively moderate size has gang activity in it. Like, if you asked the Aurora Police Department and its interim police chief, hey, is there gang activity in Aurora, Colorado? They would say yes. But when you ask them, are the gangs controlling apartment complexes? The answer is no, because those are two different questions and two different things.
Some are in custody in connection with a previously reported shooting on Nome Street in July. And so that shooting took place on July 28th. 2 people were shot. 1 other person was injured. Now, Moylan said that the officers have not yet arrested any gang members on charges related to collecting rent from residents at the...
Oh, so there's no evidence to back that up yet.
Aurora properties. So these arrests are separate, but it also shows that there is a presence of this gang in Aurora.
No one was denying that.
And that police are trying to grapple with it. By the
way, Gilda, my brain wants to call it Tren de Arugula, but I know I think it's I think it's Tren de Aragua. There we go.
That interim police chief declined to comment on how many criminal acts connected to Tren de Aragua members are currently under investigation, citing the ongoing investigative work. He said the police department has been investigating the gang for a year, and that the residents making
that sounds like something where if you asked them if the gang was active in the city, they would have said yes.
Complaints about the gang's activity have largely been migrants who live in the buildings. Let me read that one more time so people can hear it loud and clear. The interim police chief said that the residents making complaints about the gang's activity have largely been migrants who live in the buildings.
But again, are they saying that the gang has taken over the building? Because that's the fundamental issue at the heart of this story. Because everyone acknowledges gangs can be active in cities. So, why are you presenting this like it's a gotcha? I don't get it.
Why are we allowing them to be victimized by this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, so look, again, you're going to hear from one of the residents in a second, and it's compelling. But I think almost everyone involved in this story is full of crap. So the governor, Jared Polis, who I like for other reasons, but in this case, Anna's 100% right. There is no problem. That's why I did a task force months earlier.
Again, that's not what Jared Polis said. Here, let's take a look. Aurora Apartments. Let's see. Here. What did he say? Exclusive from New York Post. Colorado Governor Jared Polis dismisses migrant gang takeover of apartments as imagination. So, what he actually said was, no, they haven't taken over any apartment buildings. What he didn't say was, none of those gang members are operating in the city.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. And then the mayor, Mike Kaufman, who's a Republican, Polis is a Democrat. This is a problem because of the border. Brother, the border's, what, hundreds of miles, thousands of miles away from you? What?
Also, the mayor backtracked on that statement.
Do you run the city or don't you? Like, let's say that a terrible gang came in, crossed the border, which actually they largely fly in, and they drove all the way to Colorado and they came to Aurora, Colorado. So you're going to do nothing about it because, oh, Biden should have done something earlier, so I'm just going to let them do it.
Or Bustin. Remember,
again, who is jank like shadowboxing here? What person is like oh yeah, the gangs are coming and whatever. Like what? Like 10 people who are like ANCAPs? Like anarcho-capitalists? This is deeply this chat, they dedicated 25 minutes to this story. 25 minutes.
Remember, Denver was one of the places where Greg Abbott was busing migrants into. So I don't know look, I don't know how these individuals arrived to that area.
Just real quick. Like, I find this so weird. Why would you bring that up? And like not look into it? Like you're alleging that Greg Abbott bussed violent gang members to Denver and like created the gang. But like their existence there seems to predate that. So why?
But that's just something you should keep in mind because that was something that was happening.
Yeah. So Mike Hoffman, look, I'm the most mad at him because he's the one that's going, there's a big problem, and I'm not doing anything about it. So which one is it? Then I guess you're a loser. Total, utter loser who should definitely be.
He is a loser who should be fired. That's true. But maybe when he's hemming and hawing about, oh, you know, on the one hand, everyone in the building told me it wasn't a problem. And on the other hand, the building owner told me it definitely was a problem. I just don't know who to believe. And my police haven't found anyone taking over these buildings. But I don't know. I think you can come to a pretty reasonable conclusion that saying these buildings are taken over by gang members is like a lie. It's just not true.
Fired in the next election. who says, oh, there's giant gangs taking over buildings. And I'm not gonna send in the cops. I'm not gonna send in anyone. All I'm gonna do is blame Biden for political reasons. Okay.
But that's not what happened. Cops have been to the building. You literally just talked about how cops arrested people in the area. Are you saying they didn't arrest people from those buildings that were taken over? Is that what you're trying to say? The police were willing to arrest like 10 members of the gang, but they didn't want to go into the buildings. That then the mayor toured without incident. And all the residents said it's not an issue. And all of the residents are instead pointing at the property management company and the landlord. Crazy.
Okay, well, you seem like a real profile in courage and not at all full of crap. Obviously, you're full of crap. If you think it's a giant problem, do something. Otherwise, you should obviously be fired. Now, right wing, left wing. So the right wing says, oh, because there's a criminal migrant gang, we should ban all immigrants. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And overall, when you look at the crime rates, we've been over this many, many times. I hate to break it to you guys, but native-born Americans, twice as violent, twice as many crimes as undocumented immigrants. And
you know, like, that's a great progressive talking point that maybe if you were a real progressive network might have been like a more welcome addition somewhere in the previous 15 minutes of this segment. You know, like, instead, you fearmongered about an immigrant gang on no evidence outside of a law firm's report that was hired and paid for by the property management company.
4 times as many crimes as documented immigrants. So if we're going to kick people out of the country based on how much crime they commit, we'd have to kick out the native-born Americans. And now right-wingers are going, hold on, dude. It's not my logic, it's your logic. If you're saying based on crime, native-born people are the biggest criminals. So if that breaks your heart, but wait a minute. You say that about immigrants. So when I say it factually about you, why does it bother you? Oh, if it bothers you, you think it might bother them, especially when you're lying about it, about them? Now, on the other hand, the left wing, why do you guys want to deny that any crime exists in the world?
Yeah, because that's what the left does. Yeah, like demonstrably conservatives argue that, you know, this is all because of the border. We just need to close the border. No immigration. Demonstrably, they do that, right? On the other hand, Cenk is like, why are all of you lefties saying crime isn't real? It's like that's not the argument. Why are you constructing a scarecrow here?
Like, how do you think that gives you credibility? And like, how does it help anyone? I mean, you claim to care about migrants, then why don't you care about the migrants that are in those buildings?
Man, why aren't you watching more interviews or listening to the testimonies of those migrants who held a rally outside of one of the buildings to talk about how the real issue wasn't gang activity, but the property management?
In fact, I think the cops aren't going in, and the mayor didn't do anything because they thought, what difference does it make? It's migrants. Well, it's their people, let them deal with it. No, we don't do that in America.
No, they ran with it because it was a convenient media narrative because they're conservatives. And they ran with it because it was a media narrative fed to them by a powerful law firm.
We're all one here. We're citizens, we're US citizens, okay? You go protect those people. And left-wingers, I just don't get it. I don't get it. If you're pushing back against the demagoguing of immigrants, I just did that. That's how you do that.
Yeah, you just did that, but you ignored the fact that most of your evidence for this story is coming from a biased source that was hired by a company that is legally responsible for the conditions they've been forcing hundreds of people to live in. Like, how is this connection not made?
That, okay? But if you say, in order to push back against that, I'm just gonna pretend that no immigrant has ever committed a crime and that those gangs aren't here and they haven't taken over anything, you sound ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the problem is that everything has devolved into extreme partisanship. And one of the most common comments I've gotten on Twitter about this, just simply noting what the facts are, is, oh, it's really sad to see that you're now on.
Noting what the facts are. Your facts all came from a cherry-picked legal document. What are you talking about? You got a press release from the property management with all of their bullet pointed. I'm exaggerating for effect. I don't know if she actually got a press release here, but basically she looked into this story, saw a bunch of talking points written and crafted by a legal firm to absolve their client of legal responsibility when it came to their management of these companies, and just said, yep, that all looks true. I'm not going to question any element of that story. And has the gall to package that as progressive reporting.
On the other team. No, I need everyone to understand someone. I'm not on anyone's team, okay? I want to know what the truth is, and I'm really not interested in lying to my audience in order to protect.
Man, if your interest was the truth, then you probably shouldn't have gotten it from a law firm that is specifically hired by one of the parties in the story.
One team or the other. So let's hear from Cindy, who until very recently was living in the apartment complex, was begging the cops for help, and they were not helping her.
Okay, cool. Finally, we're hearing from at least one of the tenants. Maybe this will shed some light on the story.
Let's take a look at Cindy, again, former resident of the Whispering Pines apartment complex, city council member, helped her move out recently. Now she says that she's been dealing with so much violence in the building that she bought 6 cameras to provide evidence of what's been going on. And the videos that went viral were her videos. It was because of her cameras. Now here she is speaking about her experiences.
I believe it was your doorbell camera video that we have been watching for the last few.
Oh, cool. Then why is this being attributed to Edward Romero? Weird. Okay.
Days of what appear to be gang members, heavily armed, trying to get into the apartment across the hallway from yours. What did you see there, and how bad did it get in that building?
On this particular date, it was really bad, but it is not by any means an isolated occurrence. Unfortunately, I have months, almost a year and a half worth of footage from 6 separate cameras. Earlier that morning, I had seen several individuals carrying assault weapons down to the next floor of the building adjoining mine. And I reported it to the police. So all day we were nervous and on high alert anyway, because they told us that they really couldn't do anything unless something happened. And
oh, so this is about an isolated incident of gang violence, and not, in fact, the gangs taking over the apartment complex, which is the core the core component of the story.
And we were just waiting all day for it to happen. We knew it was coming.
Wait a minute. You've got people running around the apartment complex with long rifles and pistols. You call the police, and the police say they couldn't do anything about it?
They said they weren't coming.
Crazy. Here, just a second. Oh. Open carry is legal in Colorado, folks. So police legally can't do anything about that if you see a bunch of people walking around with guns, because it's an open carry state. Their hands are kind of tied in that circumstance.
Yeah, that is.
Personally, I don't think people should be able to do that either, but you know, that's unfortunately the scenario we find ourselves in, and legally, they're able to do that, and police can't do a damn thing about it.
Outrageous. By the way, some streamers have decided to smear the city council member who helped this woman who's low income move out of her home into a
Well, the city council member who helped do that, that seems like a good thing.
Safe place to live. And they smear her, the city council member, as racist because she is concerned about this crime that's going on. Okay. Now, Cindy also provided evidence of, bullet holes around the building, a bullet hole in her vehicle. So there's one example. This was in the building. And then here she is standing with a reporter by her Nissan. And if you look at the next photo, you'll get a closer look at a bullet hole that her car obviously has as a result of the shootings and the violence in the area. So look, you can't fix a problem or solve a problem if.
But again, no one's saying there isn't gang activity. But gang activity happens in every city. And it's bad, and we should do things to combat it, to prevent it from gaining steam. But there's a big difference between isolated acts of gang activity or even systemic acts of gang activity, and the claim that they have taken over an apartment complex. That is a different thing. And again, if you're like, oh, well, you have to listen to that one tenant of the building, let's listen to other tenants from the building. Disputing claims of gang takeover, Aurora tenants protest slumlord owner. Crazy. Quote, I have bed bugs in my apartment. I have cockroaches. I have rats. My kids are all covered in bites. Juan Carlos Alvarado Jimenez, a Venezuelan immigrant living in the Edge at Lowry Apartments in Northwest Aurora, said through a translator, I don't see any criminals here. I think we all know who the real criminals here are. Crazy. The good that exists here is better than the bad, said Fancy Rodriguez, another tenant who spoke through a translator. We are not all just Venezuelans. We are not just Colombians. We are all of us together. We are good people. Wild stuff. Anyway.
If you're in denial of a problem. And clearly there is a problem here, and it's difficult to know the extent to which this criminal gang is operating in the area, because it seems like there's this real effort to pretend like it's not even happening. And I have a huge problem with that, because I think that migrants who are here should be able to live in peace. They should be safe. American citizens should live in peace. They should feel safe. And the idea that we should just allow this type of criminal activity to happen unchecked is ridiculous to me.
No one's saying that, though. Like, you're shadow boxing.
Yeah, so I find both the leftist streamers and the cops infuriating here. They just won't go to protect those people. And I mean, and the leftist streamers, you're looking for racial issues and you're blaming the commissioner who's actually trying to do something. How about the cops who won't protect the Latino and Latina immigrants that are there, that are begging for help? So cops, do your goddamn jobs. Your job is to serve and to protect. We have a culture of cowardice in our police departments in this country, where they're taught, don't take a risk with your life. Your life is so much more important than the citizens. Don't take a risk, don't take a risk. Oh, they took over an apartment or an apartment building or half the apartment building.
Guys, shut the fuck up about the debate. I'm literally looking at it at C-SPAN right now. Shut the fuck up.
Whatever it is, it's a bunch of
Let me finish the segment.
Who cares? And now leftist streamers, you're not supposed to do the same thing. So here, Octosquiddy's a member on Twitch asked a good question. Jake and Anna, please tell us who the left is that you keep referring to and never defining. I'd really like to know as a self-ascribed leftist. No problem, because that we do that sometimes on the show. You don't know what we're referring to. Do we mean the whole left wing? Absolutely not. Okay, the majority of the left wing is perfectly reasonable on this.
Are they? You and I
Anna,
might have a disagreement here, Cenk.
Yeah, we have a massive disagreement.
Because Anna's going the way of Dave Rubin. Give her another 5 years, she'll be spewing Russian disinfo too.
You give those tiny little leftist streamers way too much
They're
credit.
not tiny little leftist streamers, Cenk. Hassan called the city council member racist
I
for
don't
helping this
care.
woman move out of that. But like, that's not a small streamer. That's a huge streamer. That's not a small person.
Okay, I mean,
do you
look,
get what I'm saying?
I mean, what are we going to get into this now? We're going to be like Trump with crowd sizes?
No, but okay.
But our but hold on, Anna. Hold on.
Holy shit, come out and push back against that narrative, Cenk. Just the mainstream Democratic Party, do they come forward and push back against that narrative? Because you have the Democratic governor denying all of this.
Yeah, the governor denied that they took over apartment buildings. He's not denying that there's gang activity in those cities. For fuck's sake.
So I don't know who on the left wants to do something about it.
She's so cooked.
Anna, look, you have to be specific. Okay, I'm so glad Octo Squiddy's asked that question because we have to be specific about who we're talking about. So if you're saying, oh, well, you know, Hassan or some other leftist streamer is big, so that counts. Well, TYT network is much, much larger. So, okay, we win. We represent the left. So we can play this game all day long, all day long. Come at me, 400 million views per month. So we definitely represent the left more.
I don't care.
So don't talk to me about the Democratic Party. What I'm talking about is the great majority of left-wing voters are, of course, normal, real Americans who don't want crime. That's so obvious. Only the craziest leftist streamers are like, oh, there's no crime, there's no crime, there's no crime at all, there's no crime. If you ever mention crime, oh, you're a right-winger, you're a right-winger. It's ludicrous. You show the bullet holes, you show the guys taking over the apartment buildings, you show the residents, you show a giant report about how
I'm here,
they
don't
have,
worry,
in fact,
I know
taken
it's
over
happening.
Apartments and done extortion, et cetera. And they're like, no. There's never any crime, and crime is awesome, and there's nothing wrong with crime, and you guys shouldn't be worried about it. You know how—
Who's he impersonating? He's made up a person in his head. Both of them have made up people in their heads and are just boxing against them. They are detached from reality.
What percentage of actual human beings believe that? Like maximum 2%. 98% of left-wing voters do not want Venezuelan criminal gangs or American criminal gangs taking over the apartments of working class people
who are saying it's not happening. You care so much about these people, and yet you don't care that they're saying it's not happening. My God. Ending that fucking segment. What a disappointment these two are. Like, just, my goodness.